Welcome to the BizNews Edge. I'm Alec Hogg. It's Monday, the 29th of June, and what a day to be back at the desk. We've got a big show for you today. In a moment, two news stories that have the political and financial worlds talking. John Steinhoff's scorched earth exit interview, and Prosus, a company that was a punchline just 3 years ago, today is one of the most compelling turnaround stories in global tech. But those are only the appetizers. The main course today is Boardroom Talk. And it's a story I've wanted to tell for months. It involves a dead man found in an English village, a racehorse owner with no public profile, a wine estate worth hundreds of millions, and the greatest corporate fraud this country has ever seen, aka Steinhoff. We're talking about Malcolm King, Marcus Jooste's consigliere, the man who made himself invisible so that others could move billions in the shadows. That's coming up. Well, first, John Steinhoff, the former DA leader, sat down with News 24's Adrian Besson this week and said the quiet parts very loudly. He accuses his successor, Jordan Hill-Lewis, of breaking a personal commitment to keep him in the agriculture portfolio as the minister. And he's named Tony Leon and his company Resolve Communications as complicit in the push to get him out. Well, now, these specific allegations will be tested over time. What matters right now, though, is the damage that Steinhoff is causing his former party. Veteran political analyst John Mattison, writing for BizNews this morning, put it exactly right. He said the DA markets itself as South Africa's competent, scandal-free alternative to the ANC. And here is its own former leader, in public, on the record, depicting the party as fractured and unready for national government. The timing is brutal. The 2026 municipal elections are just months away. Steinhoff also fired off a term that will follow this story, AfriMega. His description of what he calls a coordinated bot operation run from the Netherlands and the United States, targeting conservatives who are aligned with AfriForum, Solidariteit, and Trump-sympathetic networks. Our BizNews Premium WhatsApp channel lit up immediately after this interview. One member called it electoral damage. Another, and this is the harder observation, noted that Steinhoff had directly insulted more than 2 million former and potential DA voters in just one sitting. And underneath it all, well, there's the strategic question that has haunted the DA since the Government of National Unity was formed. How do you grow your black support without losing your traditional minority base? That tension hasn't gone away. Today, it's just got noisier. And now to Prosus. 3 years ago, and I mean this, Prosus was a punchline, a discount-laden wrapper around a 10-cent steak. Cash burning, struggling to justify its existence as an independent listed entity. Today's full-year results told a fundamentally different story, and the market loved it. Those 12-month numbers to the end of March saw the shares shooting up nearly 4% as a result. And here's what's changed. Every single one of the group's regional ecosystems, Latin America, Europe, India, is now profitable. Free cash flows at a record high, and the buyback program has quietly become one of the most aggressive capital return stories in global tech. Prosus has been repurchasing more of its own shares as a percentage of market cap than Meta, Alphabet, or even Apple. Let that land for a moment. CEO Fabricio Bloisi's vision of an AI-powered lifestyle ecosystem is no longer a slide deck aspiration as it was 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago. It's now operational. And the group's agentic AI platform is live with millions of restaurant partners. iFood, it's the company that Bloisi started himself, dominates Latin American food delivery. OLX leads European classifieds. PayU is growing in India. And closer to home, Takealot has just hit full year profitability for the very first time. Years in the making, a genuine milestone. The timing, though, is pointed. Amazon has arrived in South Africa, Prime at under 35 Rand a month. Well, Takealot's first full year after breaking into profit may also be its hardest. The real test is only just beginning. Watch this space. Well, in August 2024, police in Gloucestershire, England, were called to a property in a village called Baggendon, a hamlet in the Cotswolds. An 80-year-old man had been found dead. Nothing obviously suspicious, pre-existing health condition, natural causes. Constabulary recorded it as such and moved on. But weeks later, Thames Valley Police, investigating a separate death in Banbury, Oxfordshire, just around the corner, issued a national bulletin. They were looking for a woman named Adina Mahai and her partner. The pair, Romanians, had been targeting men who sought sexual services. She'd spike their drinks, render them unconscious, and then she'd rob them. 2 men had died. Gloucestershire went back to Baggendon. Forensic links confirmed it. The man they'd written off as a natural causes death had been poisoned. His name? Malcolm King. Last Wednesday at Oxford Crown Court, the 2 accused pleaded guilty to King's manslaughter. In England, King is hardly known. He was a private man. Enigmatic, no public profile worth speaking of, owned racehorses, moved in wealthy, discreet circles, but no one really knew him. In South Africa, though, in the world of JSE-listed companies, BVI structures, and the greatest accounting fraud this country has ever seen, his name is a different matter entirely. Malcolm King was the consigliere, the man who made himself invisible so that others could move billions in the shadows. And let me take you through the full story. Let's start with the man himself, because the public record on King is thin, deliberately thin. King was British, based in the Cotswolds, strong ties to Jersey and the offshore financial world. Racehorses, that was a passion that he shared that first connected him to Marcus Jooste when they met in the late 1990s. Hunting was another common ground. Tax havens, the architecture of offshore wealth, well, that was the deepest connection of all. From that introduction onward, King became, in the words of UK court papers filed years later, Jooste's, quote, long-time business and personal associate, unquote. In practice, he was his fixer, his ghost. Rob Rose at the Financial Mail, who spent years chasing the story and wrote a book on it called Steinhoff, described King as an enigmatic Englishman who seemed to vanish if you looked too closely. That invisibility was the point. It was his value. You can't follow a man who doesn't appear in photographs, doesn't give interviews, and whose name surfaces only in court filings. To understand King's role, you need to understand Lanzerac. Now, Lanzerac is one of the great wine estates of the Cape, planted first in 1692, one of only the 3rd estates established in the entire region. A 5-star hotel, historic Cape Dutch manor, kind of property that people who know the winelands speak about in reverent tones. In 2011, Christo Wiese owned Lanzerac, and then Jooste came to him. Wiese was at the time the controlling shareholder of Steinhoff. Jooste was his CEO, and proposed to Christo a consortium purchase the wine estate. The deal closed in 2012 for around 220 million rand. Visa received Steinhoff shares in exchange. And then something interesting happened. Jooste's name vanished. The man who had driven the transaction sat in the meetings, pushed the deal, gone from the paperwork. Appearing instead as directors of Lanzarek were Malcolm King and his daughter Paula. The supposed owner was a BVI company called Pavilion Capital, run ostensibly by King. For years, that was the official line. King owns Lanzarek. Jooste has no interest, nothing to see. But few believed it. Jooste was spotted at Lanzarek constantly. Everyone in the wine and hotel world knew. But knowing is not proving. Then, December 2017, Steinhoff collapse. 200 billion rand wiped off the JSE. The PIC, the fund that manages the retirement savings of millions of South Africans, public servants primarily, lost up to 21 billion rand. Pension funds were destroyed in certain cases, or certainly decimated. One of the ugliest moments in the history of South Africa's capital markets. The forensic accountants arrived, and what they found when it came to Lanzarek was exactly what the rumors had suggested. The structure, ultimately controlled by Jooste, owned Pavilion Capital, which owned Lanzarek, not King. King had been a front from day one. Christo Visa sued. He wanted to recover the estate, arguing he'd been fraudulently persuaded to sell a property he valued and had accepted worthless Steinhoff shares in exchange. In October 2022, the South African Reserve Bank attached Lanzarek at the same time that it did a raid on Jooste's mansion in Voelklip, Hermanus. That battle over the Reserve Bank's forfeiture of Lanzarek and 220 million rand at least worth wine farm is still active today. Well, I intend putting all of this directly to Christo Visa when I sit down with him at our BNC 9. It's a conference we're holding in the Drakensberg from the 11th to the 14th of August. Ask him what it felt like, what he knew, what he didn't. He's one of 30 keynote speakers. Those are questions, though, that only he can answer. Lanzarek was the most visible element, but the UK court papers went considerably further. The lawsuit accused Malcolm King of conspiring with Jooste to defraud Steinhoff of roughly 1.6 billion rand. The mechanism was a company called FEHAG, a conduit designed specifically to obscure the flow of cash from the Steinhoff Group to entities ultimately controlled by King and Jooste. From December 2009 right through to October 2017, 8 years, Jooste instructed 8 Steinhoff employees to make payments to FEHAG under false pretenses. The employees paid. He was a CEO. Why would they question him? The court's filings' own words, quote, "No valid legal basis for these payments," unquote. Jooste said, do it, and they did. That's the machinery of large-scale corporate fraud. Not dramatic, not cinematic, unremarkable transactions, each individually unexceptional, each authorized by a trusted authority, adding up over 8 years to 1.6 billion rand, flowing out of a listed company into structures that effectively didn't exist. At the receiving end, always behind layers of BVI companies, Jersey structures, names chosen to blur and confuse, was Malcolm King, the ghost, the mechanism, the man whose specific purpose was to be invisible. Jooste didn't live to face justice. On the morning of the 21st of March 2023, one day before he was due to surrender to the Hawks, he walked from his Voelklip home down to Kwaaiwater, which is a rocky stretch of coastline in Hermanus, one of the most upmarket corners of the town. He went to a spot behind some rocks, next to the sea, and shot himself. I know Hermanus well. Kwaaiwater is where old money in the town has always lived. And that specific patch of land, well, locals gave it a name after what happened there. The man at the center of the largest corporate fraud in South African history chose his exit. One final act of control. Even his wife didn't know she was playing golf, which he'd organized for her. But the South African Reserve Bank reckoning, once started, didn't stop with one man. This week, 2 days ago, as we record this, the South African Reserve Bank seized assets worth just under 11 million from former Steinhoff executive Chris Grovier. An 8.7 million rand home at Val de Vie, that exclusive equestrian estate outside Paarl that Jooste knew very well, plus R1 million in cash and 3 vehicles. Grovier fought it at every step. He lost. His leave to appeal was declined last month, and the Saab has now moved in. Well, here's the detail that gives this extra edge. Before joining Steinhoff in 2007, Chris Grovier worked at the South African Reserve Bank itself. He rose from clerk to deputy general manager in the exchange control department. He took early retirement specifically to join Steinhoff. And one of his jobs there was liaising with the central bank, given his prior experience. Jooste, you may not know, spent his national service at the tax authority. So he knew how valuable it could be to have time inside the governmental engine to learn how they really do operate. He'd done it himself. So did Grovier. A man who knew the rule book better than almost anyone, who understood exchange control at the most granular level, and who still apparently broke those rules. There's also Berdien Odendaal, Jooste's former romantic partner. 42 million rand in cash and an 18 million rand Val de Vie property already forfeited. That case set a crucial legal precedent. Exchange control regulations allow asset forfeiture even without a criminal conviction. The net doesn't only catch the charged, it catches anyone who benefited, who benefit from the proceeds of crime. The Reserve Bank is patient. It's been working this case for years, and it's not finished yet. So let me give you a quick read of where the Steinhoff reckoning stands. Marcus Jooste, dead by his own hand at Kwaaiwater, March 2023. His 475 million rand FSCA penalty was imposed the day before he shot himself. His Hermanus mansion, the old Rupert House, subsequently sold for over 100 million rand. Ben Lagrancy, the former CFO of Steinhoff, sentenced to 10 years, 5 of those suspended. The first significant criminal conviction in the Steinhoff story. Stefan Grobler, former executive, a 358 million rand FSCA fine, 67 million rand in assets seized by the South African Reserve Bank. Berdien Odendaal, 42 million rand in cash and an 18 million rand Val de Vie property forfeited to the state. And now Chris Grovier, Val de Vie home seized this past week. Lanzerac, the Saab forfeiture fight continues, and Malcolm King, dead in a Cotswolds village, poisoned by sex operators. No conviction, no sentencing. The fraud charges die with him. The 1.6 billion rand civil lawsuit will presumably wither. He slipped out of the Steinhoff story the same way he operated within it, quietly, without fanfare, leaving barely a trace, although surely he would not have wanted a Eugene Terreblanche type exit. And that's what he got. Well, I've been following the Steinhoff story since it broke in December 2017, having known Jooste for decades, literally, before that. It's the kind of story that keeps offering new chapters. Just when you think the cast is complete, another name surfaces. Just when you think the Reserve Bank is finished, another forfeiture lands in the Government Gazette. This week gave us 2 new ones. a Valder v. Holmes seized from a man who used to work at the Reserve Bank itself, and confirmation from a courtroom in Oxford, England, of all places, that the man who was perhaps Jooste's most important enabler went in a way that almost defies belief, stranger than fiction. Rob Rose wrote about King back in 2021. He said his time in the shadows was drawing to a close. Rob was right. He just didn't know how. Neither did anyone else. Jooste chose his exit. He walked to the rocks, made a decision. Malcolm King didn't get to choose his, though. He died in the English countryside, taken out by a 31-year-old Romanian woman and a bottle of GBL. The man who hid behind offshore structures and layers of obfuscation for decades, brought down in the end by circumstances that no one would believe if you told them, unless it came out in court. South Africa's biggest corporate fraud is slowly, imperfectly, incompletely resolving itself. Not all the money will be recovered. Not all the perpetrators will face a court. But the Reserve Bank keeps working. The hawks keep working. And the story keeps finding its endings. I'll have more when I sit down with Christo Wiese at BNC 9 in August. That's a conversation I'm genuinely looking forward to. You can be there. Still seats available. Join us in the Drakensberg. Before I let you go, a reminder of the news that opened today's show. John Steinhoff has lit a fire inside the DA at the worst possible moment. Whether his specific allegations hold up, the damage to the party's brand as South Africa's competent alternative is already done. Watch how Jordan Hill-Lewis responds, and watch how the 2026 municipals are now going to unravel, probably with fresh eyes. Jordan will also be at BNC 9. Come there and rub shoulders with him. And then Prosus, a company that was written off and has come back with results that deserve more attention than they'll get on a Monday morning. The 10-cent discount that defined the company for so many years is now narrowing. Take a lot as profitable. The buyback machine is running. This is a genuine revival story. And now one more thing before I let you go. This one I'd ask you to make time for. Our BizNews today has featured something very special. We've published a remarkable piece of writing, probably the best piece of writing we've done in more than 12 years of our publication. Riaan Malan, the author of My Traitor's Heart, a global bestseller that's still in print and gone into 14 different languages, has written an open letter to Helen Zille. He calls it what it is. Behind the March on March protests due tomorrow lurks something far more dangerous than an anti-immigration movement. Malan writes from his village in the Little Karoo. He writes about Malawian laborers and colored construction workers and apricot farmers and a rugby club treasurer named Jacques. And through all of that, he constructs one of the most honest, uncomfortable, and beautifully observed account of what is actually happening at the fault lines of South African society right now. The real xenophobia story. For me, Riaan Malan is easily the greatest living South African writer. This piece is why. It's on biznews.com. Please read it. And that's the BizNews Edge for Monday, the 29th of June. I'm Alec Hogg. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Find everything we've discussed, the boardroom talk on Malcolm King, the Riaan Malan piece, the Steinhoff analysis from John Madison, and the Prosus results at biznews.com. And if today's boardroom talk added something to your understanding of how the Steinhoff fraud actually worked, we'll share it with someone who also needs to hear it. See you tomorrow. In uncertain times, good information is priceless. The BizNews Conference is heading back to the Drakensberg. Join me, Alec Hogg, from the 11th to the 14th of August for BNC 9. Champagne Sports Resort, where it all began, and where our community gathers for honest conversations, smart investing insights, and direct access to some of South Africa's sharpest minds. Come and rub shoulders with the best we've got. 28 keynote speakers, 3 days. Seats are available now. Book your seat by clicking the link in the description. Start your day a step ahead. BizNews Insider. It delivers the business stories that matter every morning straight to your inbox, sharp, fast, and free. Subscribe now.